Welcome back. I'm Crispy. I actually recorded this video once already, and for some reason, when I went to go upload it to YouTube, it would upload to 100%, and then it never would finalize. It would never actually get to the point where I could, select a thumbnail and do all of that. I did something wrong. I think it may have had something to do with the file format that it was saving in, but it was odd because I didn't change any of the settings in my recording software I'm using. I'm just using OBS, just the free open source thing. I think it's open source. Anyway, I just used that, and for my other videos, it seemed to work fine. But when I tried to do this last, I'd actually done 2 videos, of course, because if it's not going to work, why not work for one? May as well not work for 2. And so I changed the output of this OBS to now be MP4, which I think is more friendly with YouTube instead of what it was before, which was an MKV format. I think there's someone, I apologize, I can't remember your name just off the top of my head, but you had given me some good pointers in terms of the mic level that I should be shooting for. Please let me know if I'm still close to that. It seems like I am, but I'm still learning this. I appreciate your patience. You didn't come here to hear me lament about my my technology struggles, but what I wanted to do tonight is I wanted to give you an update on our weekly game. This is the Tuesday night game. It's an in-person game. This is the third. I believe it's the third update I've done on this. And my last update, I was disappointed with how things went. I was like, this is going to take some persistence. I'm going to have to keep at it. It's not going to be an overnight thing. We're going to have to really, we're in it for the long haul. We're going to have to really work. However, and I'm not recanting what I said there. I wanted to say that this last game, there was a few key differences, and I want to talk a little bit about what I did that may have contributed to a much better experience. And I want to also give credit to the players that did most of the heavy lifting. First of all, just a brief preamble. I haven't really talked much about the size of the group or anything like that. I give you a little bit of background. We have 6 players currently. 2 of those players I suspect are just going to be temporary players. They're our youngest players. And I already have received confirmation that one of them is going to be leaving as of the end of this month. One of our longer time players, he's away for a full month. And so he's gone. And then we had a player on Tuesday that fell ill right before the session. It's really unfortunate. I feel bad for him. I know he really looks forward to it. And we've had some hot weather here recently, and it doesn't agree with him. And so he was really not feeling well. So he contacted me about an hour before the game and said he couldn't make it and apologized for the short notice, which I always appreciate. If, things happen, totally understand it. It just happens. It happens to all of us. But letting me know as soon as you know is always appreciated. Nevertheless, I thought, well, this is a great opportunity because normally we have a fairly large group with six players. That's a lot. And because we're focused so much on immersive role play, I thought, well, 4 players, maybe that's going to be even better because it's more in that sweet spot where every player gets ample time in the spotlight, and the pacing can feel maybe a little better, not as rushed. Because I can be pretty frenetic when it comes to keeping things moving with a large group. I don't know how to describe it other than I try to keep my energy level really high so that, okay, next. Like, or just I don't say next, I just point to the next person to indicate that it's time for them to speak. So that was a little surprising that we were immediately down 2 players, but I was excited about it. The other thing that was different this week is I did a better job of explaining to all the players what we were working on, and I think it's important to do that. Not well, in my experience so far, it helps when I start off the session by saying, okay, guys, we're going to be really focused in on this for this session. Like, I want you to really pay attention to your your player-to-player interactions, for example. And if you're looking for more information, you feel like I haven't given a description that's painted the scene enough that you can interact in the scene, then here's how I would suggest you get that information rather than just doing what we used to do, which was, is there this there? Or, what does the building look like, or stuff like that. And I modeled a little bit what I was looking for as just an example. The good news, and why I think this was so much better as in terms of a session, is that the players all, I guess in a way, this is sort of like re-engaging with the social contract. The social contract is a great idea. This is something where the whole group agrees, here's what these are going to be the norms of our game session. We're not talking out of character. How do we feel about player versus player? What is, like, for example, in my game, because my kids are older now, but for a long time my kids were quite young, and my wife, she's not a gamer. She's very indulgent of my hobby, but it's just not her thing, and that's fine. But I was bringing all these people into the house, and we had little kids for many years. I mean, they're adults now and have their own thing going, but and no longer at home. But I have a rule in my game, and it's going to sound weird to many of you, I suppose, but I just didn't want a bunch of guys around the table swearing when I had little kids running around. So I had a rule. It was part of the social contract, and it was like, I don't want swearing in the house. I've got little kids here. And the advantage of that is that it gets people thinking about what they're saying. And obviously, sometimes things happen, and the odd, 4-letter friend getter slips out, and I'm not going to make a big deal about it. But there's that, and I didn't want, because I wanted people to be really with it. I wasn't much of a beer gamer, so I another kind of funny social contract that we've had in my game is that I don't have alcohol in the games, and I'm no judgment against those that like to do that. That's fine. But I wanted people to be on there, to be right with it. Like, I didn't want any senses dulled or anything like that. And my fear was that it would become more of just a socializing, like hanging out, playing the poker game, and I always wanted more engagement of that than that, even when we weren't really focused in on immersive role play. So by saying to the players at the beginning of the session, we're going to be focusing on this, and then getting their buy-in, then for the rest of the session, they're thinking about that, and they're focused in on that. And I could tell that was the case. And this is why this is really exciting. Because one of the players at one point, he turned to me and he started saying, I'm going to go and talk to this other player's character. And then he stopped himself in the middle of his first sentence. He says, wait, why am I telling you this? And he turned to the player and started, and I'm like, yes, that's what we're looking for. You do not have to route your player-to-player role play through me. I don't have to be the medium for that. You can just talk directly to the other players, and they likewise can just talk directly to you in character, of course. We're not, comparing character sheets and that kind of nonsense. We're actually just talking as if we're the characters. It's part of the fun of the make-believe. And I thought that was excellent. And I think it's important in this process as we're going through it that when I see something that's just really, I'm like, yes, that's it. That's what I want. I make a point of telling the player either right then if I think of it, but especially afterwards when we have a bit of so we end early enough. So our game session starts at 6:30 and goes till 9:30. We usually go a little beyond that, but we try to end it at around 9:15. And so that's a time for us afterwards to be like, wow, that was great. Like, wasn't it cool when this happened? Or what did you think about this? Or that was surprising how this went, and I hadn't anticipated that. Or we just had this kind of out of character. The game session is for all intents and purposes over, but it gives everyone a chance to recap, in a sense, what had happened. And I like to use those, that last 20 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour, to just congratulate each, not like, I try to be fair. I'm not trying to patronize or anything like that. I'm trying to be very clear that when you did this, this is exactly what I was looking for. And that was awesome when you did this. And there was a couple instances where players caught themselves, and you could see they're trying really hard. Like they wanted to just ask me the question, can I do this? Can I do? And they stopped, and you could see they were kind of looking up. They were thinking, okay, how am I going to say this? And they did such a good job. It was just, I was really, it's one of those things. Like I once lived in a part of the world where it wasn't my mother tongue, and I'm not a native speaker. And one thing that I noticed is, being someone that was trying to learn a foreign language in a foreign land, that as long as I was making the effort, people seemed to be really patient. And as the person that's running the game, as long as those players are really trying, and they were trying really hard, and it was working. They were having a lot of success. So that was really encouraging. I think for me at least, it's important to acknowledge that. Say, hey, that was awesome. Like when you did that was great. And I'm specifically looking for behaviors that are going to keep the game in that immersive mode. We had a little bit of combat in I know combat can be, everything can bog down. We've experienced that. We've played enough game systems to know that, if it's a big combat, it can take an hour or more. We had a really exciting combat, and it was very cinematic. And I had to emphasize that as well, as, okay, we're going to work on this and we're going to work on this. And one of them was, I want you to, if you're trying, I already told the one, I was like, here's how you interact to get more information from me without just kind of asking me, oh, dear DM, what does this look like? What did that interact differently? That was one. And the other one was, the second one was, try to stay in character when you're talking to one another. And the third one was, think cinematically. You've seen Westerns. All of you have seen Clint Eastwood or, Val Kilmer, or whoever it is that you're kind of picturing in your mind. This is me as John Wayne, or this is me as, whatever, the Chris Christopherson, any of the great Western actors. Think of that, and then try to think cinematically. So if you're doing something, it's not, you're not just doing the thing, you're doing it with that flair, whatever that character's flair would be. And we have a player that's playing a luchador. There's a wrestler. He's a melee kind of driven character. And we had this combat I mentioned, and it was fast. It was just furious. It felt real time. He described it great. There was, there's a card table involved. There was chairs flying all over the place. It was great. And there was still enough detail that everyone felt like they were in it. And afterwards, well, I guess I'll just close with this. Every one of my players now has said to me, without exception, that they can just never go back. We're not perfect yet. We've got a long way to go. And I'm sure that next week we'll have new challenges and new things that worked well. But they've all said that focusing on staying in character, focusing on being immersed in the world, this make-believe world that we've created, is so much better than just playing bingo with a character sheet. That was something that I heard Shauner say once, and I thought, yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm playing bingo with character sheets. There's no role-playing in here. This is just bingo. Why am I doing this? But it's just one of those things. I would strongly encourage you, if you're thinking about, hey, you know what? I'm going to try something different. Let's try something different in this game. Let's try to stay in character the whole time. Like, don't ask me any questions. I'm not there. As a game master, the only way you'll be able to converse with me, other than the descriptions that I kind of give you, is through other characters that I role play in the scene. And try it. Like, it's just so good. It is so good. I feel so bad for those that feel like it's oh, that's inaccessible to us because it's too much like acting. It's not acting. Or that's for those that, are improv specialists. I mean, no, my group isn't like that. It would be nice if we had a thespian, but we don't. We have just regular, we're normal guys, normal jobs, like just normal people. But looking for this few hours in a week where we can do something completely different, it's just it's a great exercise of imagination, and we all come out of it with a high. And the reason I can say that is because after our game session was over, no one wanted to leave the table. I mean, we had played to the end of the scene, and there were some tense moments, and there were some interesting revelations of what had happened, and characters that they've met, and they felt very much like their actions mattered, because they did matter. Like, they did influence the way things went. And they didn't want to leave. And they wanted to just keep talking about the game. And then the next day I get a text here or there from players saying, that was a great session. Thank you so much. I had so much fun. And I'm like, wow, boy, if you only knew how little I prepared for that session. I just thought, okay, here. I brainstormed beforehand what's happening in this town. And then I kind of, who are some key players in the town? And then I totally left it up to them as to, who do they interact with? Who do they not interact with? What do they choose to do? Which direction do they go? There were things that were going to happen regardless of whether the players interacted with it or not. I was trying to make it feel real, but I spent what in my time, like my prep time for that session was a few minutes generating a few images that I wanted to just show them. I wanted to show them a Western town at night in the rain. And so I used some AI generated scenes. I did that. A rundown church, a Western style church in poor condition. And so most of my time was just, and that didn't take very long. That was just putting the right prompts in and then refining it a little bit and then printing them off so that I could say, here's the town. As you look in through the pouring rain, here's what you see. And I didn't take a lot of time. Like, I really didn't. I used to be guilty of hours and hours of prep time. Maybe that's a good time. I mean, that might be a good video, is talk a little about game prep and how that's changed as I've been trying to be more a role player and not just the standard style of playing. That probably is. Oh, let me know in the comments if that's something that you would find helpful if you're joining me on this crusade to be a better role player. I think it's worth it. So that's my closing thought, is that it's worth it. The players love it. They did not initiate this, but now they're helping fuel it as we keep going. And it sounds like they're all in it for the long run too. Like we're doing this. And these are people that have played for 20 years, 30 years. And they've already said, no, we can't go back to the way we used to do it. We just can't. I really appreciate you, those of you that are watching these videos. I enjoy your comments. I like the interaction. Please keep following along. And if you've heard something here that, like, yeah, that sounds promising or interesting, or I'd like to have my players so excited for the next session that they just can't wait. They don't even want to leave the table anymore. It's just they had such a good time. And really, I can't take a lot of credit for that. I think that's because they're getting into it. It's how much, it's perhaps related to how much they put into it, how much they're going to get out of it. And when it was just story time with Crispy, it depends on what kind of day I'm having. If I had it shouldn't be just story time or a Disney or just some kind of scripted ride along story. That's just never going to really cut it. And so anyway, I'm starting to ramble now. I know that. I'm sure I'll get some feedback from my son, he's pretty good. I really appreciate his feedback, because he's always like, Dad, you're too close to the camera, or you really should think about bullet points, because how many times can we hear you say the same thing I really appreciate that. It's good. Kids are great that way because they'll give you their honest opinion. They won't varnish anything. They'll be like, "Yeah, no, that's please, Dad, you're killing me here." So hopefully this will upload, and yeah, I'm just really excited. Had a great game session, and it's got me fired up again. So I'm sure you've all experienced that before. Thanks again. Look forward to conversing with you on the next one. Bye.